In 2012, did you know that
7 million people were affected? 2.3 million people were displaced. 597,476 houses were destroyed and damaged. Over 363 people killed. An estimate of 2.6 trillion naira was lost.
you too can make a difference? Do not build houses along waterways or flood-prone areas. Evacuate from flood-prone areas immediately to safer grounds. Avoid dumping of refuse in gutters and water channels. Clear drainage and waterways. Adhere to early warning alerts. Always listen to the weather forecast on your radio and TV. Take warnings from relevant authorities serious.
This message is from the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation.
Hello viewers, good morning and welcome to another time with NOA River State Dialogue, a platform where government policies, programs and activities are communicated to the populace through feedback mechanism. Also, topical issues as it relates and affects our lifestyle, communities, economy and nation at large is discussed and addressed on this platform. So today, we'll be discussing on the topic flood, causes, effects and prevention. And I have a wonderful guest here with me in the studio this morning to unfold this issue of flood, how it happens, what good or damages has it done to us, and as well deliberate on the way forward. So I have by name Dr. William IYAMA. He is from Waste Management Society of Nigeria, River State Chapter. So you are welcome to our program once again.
Thank you very much.
And I must say that you have been so nice to us. Anytime we call on you, you always have a response to give us. Thank you, sir, for coming through again.
It's my pleasure.
All right. As we can see from our introduction and where it's coming from, as from Waste Management Society, is a good personality to deal on the topic that we are discussing today. Also, viewers, it's my pleasure to let you know that you are an important guest to this program, as we'll be glad to entertain your feedback in form of suggestions, questions, contribution and encouragement on the comment section. You can also feel free to hit the share button. This will enable us get a wide range network for people to engage in this conversation and get the information necessary about flood. Thank you and enjoy your stay with us. All right, Doctor, I want to, my first question is, with knowledge, when anytime flood is being mentioned, what comes in our mind is rainfall, water. So I want to ask, what kind of rainfall or water can cause this flood? That is mean explaining this flood in details to the public.
Well, thank you very much. Flooding is one thing I know around our environment here. All of us, even the young, the children, the adults, can tell stories about. But flooding generally is simply an overflow of water, in such a way that the water is found where it is not supposed to be found, on dry lands. Usually, what we say normal, a place supposed to be a dry land, all of a sudden you see that water is now leaving its original abode to the dry land. That is what flooding is all about. But primarily, issues around flooding have been traced most times to two major causes. It could be natural, but it could also be artificial, that is man-made.
Okay.
The natural means would have been as a result of ecological factors, which is beyond man. But man has contributed more to it, because the way nature was made, you are aware that more of life is in water. So we have very little limited space for land. But when these things happen, some activities we carry out for man to survive, you discover that we are every day increasing the problems. For example, we are all aware that population surge in capital cities are becoming very enormous.
Yes.
Why? Because we have refused to deliberately develop the hinterlands. So everybody is migrating towards where you have better facilities and amenities. So you discover that as you are moving, you're also moving with that 1.1 or 1.5 kg of waste, which every individual is going to generate per day. So as the population increases, in the capital cities, the population of waste, also the amount of waste, also will increase. And if that happens, where is the waste going to is another question we are not able to answer. Most of the waste are laid into the drainages. And what happens? These drainages are supposed to be an emptying point of water, excess water. In fact, one of the major causes of flooding is from rainfall.
Okay.
When rainfall is incessant, generally, of course, you know there's going to be an increase. And that's why in some countries today, what you observe is that they are started forming what we call spongy cities. Spongy cities are like cities where, water could be pushed to. Nobody might be there, but they push this water there. When this water, both storm water, wastewater, sewer water, can be pushed to such areas, there they can use it for irrigation. You can even still carry out treatment, and they can become drinkable water too. So flooding is something that no one can stop, but you can minimize the impact.
Okay.
Because they are there. For example, the climate change, nobody, even if we are talking about climate change every day, nobody can stop climate change.
Yeah.
But we can reduce it.
You can manage it.
Manage it, yeah, little control. Because I used to tell people, just look at the story of what flooding is doing. Those countries, the temperate countries, where you have so much cold, what happens is that water goes into the block form, which we call ice block or ice snow.
Not snow, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when the temperature of those areas increase, what happens? They will melt. And as they melt, where are they going to? They are going to oceans. Oceans will definitely shift some to the seas, which are smaller. Then they will shift them to rivers. Rivers may not be able to take, or they shift them to streams. From there to rivulets. And what happens? These are all branches and tributaries. So we definitely get over their normal board. So as that happens, what you normally observe is what we call flooding.
Yeah.
Because the land has to suffer a final. So that's why you see they are temporary, because when those things go down, the water also returns to source. But while water is returning to source, it goes with a lot of implications. A lot of damages will be done. Human beings will die. Like if you check any part of the year, there has been a warning already that so many local governments are going to be involved. In fact, if I can remember, I say about 203 local governments out of 500 local governments, that's almost more than half will be having this problem. And about 32 states, even the FCT is included.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that it's a serious issue. But if you look at today, ladies and gentlemen, you can bear with me and you can also agree with me that no state government, no federal government, no agency is actually being proactive as well. 6 months after now, after those predictions, we have not seen anything on ground. So the residents have to face the challenge again. So the only advice for now, deseal your drains if possible. Try as much as you can to also, if you know you are in a flood-prone zone, please, the earlier you make secondary provisions, the better on how to leave the environment to another better place.
All right. Thank you, sir. You, from this first question of answering what flood is, you have touched a lot of areas.
Yes.
What it causes, why it comes, what people do, and from what I can observe from what you have said, I think we ought to take it one after the other so that the viewers or the people will be able to know what we are saying, and if there is a role they ought to play, they'll be able to get it. So then, now from while we are talking, we will talk about waste that is sometimes artificially induced and naturally induced, which there is nothing we can do, it will happen. So apart from naturally, and one of the points you mentioned of being artificially induced is waste. Are there any other way that you think man contributes to flooding apart from inadequate management of waste?
Yes, there are still some other ways that man contributes, especially through construction activities.
Okay.
Because you know
that's town planning.
Yes. You know, most of our capital cities, especially the old cities, most of them were planned before now, but they never took care of expansion.
Okay.
So you discover that the rich are still trying to reclaim lands, you know, from these areas that were actually made to be the drainage basins. Like I mentioned, the Eastern Bypass as a typical case. You know, when we try to construct without looking at where water is going to, I was expecting a very serious a tunnel that will allow all the water around that particular area to go to, but they are not there. But that is another major area that can lead to flooding, because as that has been blocked, water has no choice than to move to another area.
Yeah.
And that is what can lead to flooding.
So, with this, you have explained waste management, improper town planning. I want to ask, what effects, from what you have explained, I don't see any good flood has done to us. It has been like a disaster, or should I call it disaster than call it like a disaster? Right? It's a disaster.
Yes, it is. It is.
So, what are the effects of this flood? What has it cost us in this nation?
Yeah, one of the major effects or effects is on human being, impact on non-living materials. But one of the major effects of this is likely epidemics. You know, when water is coming that way, it dissolves a lot of organic and inorganic material.
Yeah.
And when it is going back, it leaves some of that. That is why some people will tell you that it also has some advantages. And the only advantage it has is that sometimes when flood comes.
Okay, it has advantage.
Yes.
So I take my correction that there is good in it, right?
Yeah, there is. And that good is very minor, because those who are in agriculture, they know that when flood comes, as it is living, it can leave some alluvial soil.
Okay.
And that helps in agriculture. And so those who plant in areas like those food crops that require so much water, like rice, some of them feel that it's a way to also, if the flooding is not high, to submerge the area, it could be a source of irrigation. Some people, in fact, there are some lands that are too far from water sources. When flooding comes, you channel it to that their zone. There could be another relevance of
it. But there can be an artificial irrigation.
But artificial, you know, there are some areas where artificial irrigation is very difficult too. Very, very difficult. But you know, those are the minor advantages flooding could have to reduce the expenditure. But most importantly, it destroys a lot of infrastructures, because what flooding has caused, it's not even billions of dollars every year are lost because of flooding. Nigeria is a typical example. You go to some of our villages today, only the renovations people do every year because of flooding is enough testimony that flooding is a disaster. Of course, if you look at the advert that was made before this program, people die. In fact, last 2 weeks, I remember there was a place in this country where almost close to 21 people died just recently as a result of flooding. The flooding has started, but all is from rainfall presently. And you know, one of the major problems we have, the effects we're talking about, like I said, for both living things and non-living. Yes, but to living things, a lot of diseases come with it. When it is going back, you hear of 1 or 2 ailments that have not been found before. Because you remember that when a rain occurs and there is flooding, there is always a flow. And that flow carries a lot of sediments, a lot of particulate matter, a lot of things. It flows across, sometimes some areas that have, what do you call it, oil spills. It carries all of them.
Carries on, and people inhales and
most of those things are volatile organics. I know the VOCs, you won't know their impact until a very long time. So some of them are very latent. Latent in the sense that you wouldn't notice them. They are there. But when it comes up, it's difficult to cure. Because at that time you would have, there's what we call chronic and acute effects. When it is chronic and when it's acute, sometimes it can last so long in your system. Before people can notice that you have that problem, it's already at the end. But those ones that are just mere, maybe you have the impact, if it's a burning, it burns your skin, you see. Those ones are easier controlled. So that's what we're saying. Flooding has a lot of accidental effects that man cannot quantify. But like I always say, how do we mitigate is my major problem against this flooding.
All right. Actually, I think personally, before a problem is being solved, is to know that problem.
Yes.
How big that problem is. While we are talking, you say out of this flood, because of this flood, we lose lots of money.
Seriously?
Yeah, so I wanted to let the public know how far this flood has cost us in our economy. Before we move to what can be done, ideas and all that, so how does it affect our economy at large?
Of course, you know that one of the major impact it has on the economy is the ecological fund. Assuming there's no flooding, ecological fund outside the other parts of ecological funding, what about the issue of mitigation is very expensive because some areas you have to now begin to build dams. You build dams to reduce flow of water, and that is quite expensive. Dams are very expensive. That is why as rich as Nigeria, how many dams do we have? That's to tell you how expensive it is. And the politics of damming is not something you just go and do. That's why you observe Nigerians will say, you are giving Niger light, you are giving the Republic light. You don't know that you cannot dam unless you reach agreement with the upstream and downstream countries. So these are things that are very expensive to go into. Like Nigeria, for example, every year we spend millions of dollars on flooding because, sorry to say that, even though the money is released, Nigerians don't feel the impact, but the money has been released. So you can't quantify, you can never quantify the impact of flooding in any nation because it is quite devastating, because some are borne by the people without the government impact. So that is exactly where we are coming from.
All right, sir, before we continue, we want to go to an LGA in River State here that I think yearly they face this flooding activity, this flooding disaster. I've been there once, I've been there, I've been in that local government once, and it's nothing to write home about. You see people leaving their homes, going to another town and all that. We'll be having our correspondent from Ahoda West, Mr. Douglas Madison. Please, if you are on, take it up.
Thank you, Mrs. Ifoma Olodugbe, for having me on this live-touching program, NOA Rivers Dialogue. Hello, viewers. This is Madison Douglas, the Community Orientation Officer, National Orientation Agency, Ahoda West Local Government Area. And I'm reaching you live from Oruama, one of the flood-prone communities in Ahoda West Local Government Area. Today we are discussing on the topic flooding, causes, effects, and prevention. And I have with me Mr. Peterson, who is going to tell us more on this topic.
Okay, my name is Mr. Peterson. I'm one of the community representatives in this community, and I want to talk about flooding, the causes, effects, and prevention. One of the causes of flooding in our area is overflow of river from the river, then excessive rainfall and blockade of drainages. That is the causes. Then the effects of this flooding, it damages our food crops. Flooding also damages our properties. Flooding also damages flood effects on our health. Then one of the prevention is the people decided should clear their drainages. Then the government should build dam, then avoid building on waterways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. You've all heard from him. Over to you, presenter Mrs. Ifoma Olodugbe.
Thank you, Mr. Madison Douglas. So you can hear, you say that they usually face flood in that area yearly, which is caused by the outflow of the rivers. Then I want to ask, their environment or their community, where people live, does it determine what kind of environment is usually affected by this flood?
Let me just digress a little. Ngene, of course, which is the second largest tribe in Ahoda West. I think the players are more in population. If you check the Ngenes, that is, you have the Orashi. The Orashi separates that from this one.
It's like you are familiar to.
Yes, I did my secondary school in Akure.
Wow. Okay.
So I can tell a lot of things about them, because if you look at that area, that Oruama community you are talking about, if you are coming from Mbiama, you discover that at the extreme left and right, they are surrounded by two different streams. So they are just at the center. So the river we are talking about, or the flooding we are talking about, comes from both the left and from the right. And so most times you see the communities on that highway, only on that road, because usually during construction that the road is normally elevated.
Yes.
So the whole of the right hand side, the left hand side, like my school, the CS Ake Maria, is always flooded. In fact, the former local government chairman Awori Miller, I remember where he built his house during the flooding season. In fact, he laments every time. I told them there is nothing you can do about this because of the terrain. It's a fresh water aquifer environment. And of course, you know that they live below the water table.
Yeah.
The water table there is quite high. So definitely, any small rain, they're already in water. So that is a major issue. The only thing I know you can do, if they can learn from the Bayesians, that's another way. They should be able to construct these buildings that have these wooden buildings for a kind of center. They can do that, create a kind of cliff where the community can relocate to when there is flood. Build terraces on top of structures. They just leave that area. Once flood comes, they move to that place. And that is the only way for now. Because if you say, okay, move to, there's no town there you can move to that is not flooded. Ranging from Okake, all those axes.
from Ahoda West, is there any other LGA?
My area is a major.
Is
my
also
area.
the same?
Dom is just one of the worst. In fact, my land there self, when the flooding comes, it almost takes my hide.
Wow.
So it's
That's
a serious problem because Dom is just by the bank of the river Niger. So that one, but like I said, the problem we have is siltation, and the government does not want to do it about it. It's very, very expensive to carry out what we call maintenance dredging, which the country is scared of. It's quite expensive. If you even look, Port Harcourt this as an example, look at the two works we have, the two seaports we have. To dredge it is political. But you know that once you dredge these areas, especially during the dry season, some volume of water will be taken when the flood comes, and the effect on land will be a little bit minimal. Like if you go towards Omok, you discover that, I don't know whether it's NDDC that did that or the federal government, there's a canal that passes through Omok around Oposi. You see that it has been expanded, it was dredged. So when the flood will come, you see that it will be a little bit minimal within that Omok environment. That's what I expected them to do.
Okay. So please, we'll be having another correspondent, but I want us to have this question in mind before we call the correspondent in. You have had experience of this flood over the years.
Yes.
Just like you say that you school in Akinima. I want to ask, you will not answer it now till we have our correspondent. I want to ask, over the years, out of your experience, are there signs that in a year, if someone is able to observe and say, this year there may be flood, or the one Nimet used to give us, does he usually circulate to people to get them informed there is flood? Before we come back to it, let's call our correspondent from Gokana LGA, Mrs. Sue Kabari. Please, if you are on, take it up.
Mrs. Ifoma Ilodigwe for having me today in the studio. My name is Barikwa Kabari, Komo Gokana local government area. Our topic today is flood, causes, effects, and prevention. With me here is Mr. Friday. Mr. Friday, what can you tell us on the topic flood, causes, effects, and prevention?
Thank you. Floods is the excess of waters on the surface of the ground. One of the causes of flooding is heavy rain or torrential rain. Another cause is poor drainage systems. Another one is inadequate urban planning. One of the effects of flooding is that flooding can injure people or kill people. It can destroy our properties, our homes as well. It can also stampede or shut down our businesses. Flooding can also interrupt our power supply. We can prevent flooding by giving early warning sign, by adequate drainage system, building adequate drainage systems. We can also prevent flooding by preserving our wetlands and planting of trees. We can also prevent flooding by making sure that our gutters, our culverts are clean and neat and clear any blockage of waters. So with this, we can prevent flooding in our environments.
Thank you, Mr. Friday, for being with us today. Over to you, Mrs. Ifoma Ilodigwe.
Thank you so much, Ma. That was a good insight of what we are discussing this morning. Thank you so much. That was a good report. So, sir, back to what you are saying. If you observe, you'll see the man was talking more, including stampede. Lives are being lost because of this flood. So, back to our question.
Yeah.
And you talk about early warning sign. If you are able to get it, we can. So, as a child growing with all this experience and as an adult, can you tell us if there has been sign before this flood come?
I have to be very sincere. In fact, I grew up around areas that are, let me say, flood-prone zones. And I know that I never saw the level of flood that we experienced in this part of the century. I never saw any.
What do you think may be the cause?
It's climate change.
Are you sure?
It's climate change. There's nothing to talk about. It's climate change.
What of the, if we look,
sorry to cut you, if you check well, you discover that ask your parents or grandparents, they will tell you some of them have forgotten when they saw such disaster.
What of from what the correspondent said about the improper planning of town, don't you think our population increasing? While you are growing up, you may have one house, only you and your siblings are there. Then as you are growing, you build your own house, your brothers build their own, and everybody, population is increasing. Don't you think, apart from the climate change?
No. What I think that majorly, for now, climate change is a factor.
Okay.
Seriously, because whether I like it or not, some areas that don't even used to have drought, and you are aware of what we call desertification.
Yeah.
A lot of areas have now been taken over by deserts now. If you go to the north, lands are being overtaken. No plants, dry lands. Then those areas that are flood-prone zones are having excess of water, excess rains.
Because of human, we are growing. Yes. Deforestation is involved.
Yes.
Don't you think so?
The deforestation we are talking about, there are some areas where this forest, you find this forest, people are not even, we don't have water in those areas. Some of them are just dry lands with trees. Though, like what I said, climate change, even the deforestation you are talking about, what is the climate change issue? It's the climate change, because those trees that used to help us to probably trap some of these pollutants are no more there too. And when rain falls, like I was talking, if you remember, I was talking about green roofs, use of green roof as a mitigating measure. What does green roof do? It traps water, some of the water, and so the water is not going to come down in form of storm anymore. So they can stay there. Some will be trapped, and it reduces the amount of water that is flowing. But if these trees are no more there, where there's no deliberate attempt to even have these green roofs we're talking about, so definitely they will come to that town. But there was a question you asked me, which I wanted to say about indicators of whether the intensity of the of flooding. Yes, in those days in the villages, they have what we call mark points.
Yeah.
If a particular year, once the water gets more than a particular part of what they know, the villagers will tell you that this year's rain or this year is going to experience very serious flooding. Like in my place, we know.
Yeah.
By the riverside, we know once it passes that place, everybody begins to get prepared.
Wow.
Yes. And if you check well, if we are sincere ourselves, most times when flooding occurs, it is usually as a result of heavy downpour. Once the rain becomes incessant, you observe that it will just surpass that level. Outside the one that dams collapse, that is the one we can say is purely anthropogenic, because dams do collapse when the amount of water becomes too much for it to carry. It can collapse. And that one, of course, you know what it means.
Yeah. Sorry, we'll be getting our feedback again from Ogubolo local government, where our correspondent is also waiting. Mrs. Doris Omako, please, ma, if you are on, take it up.
Good morning, Mrs. Former Lady. I am Doris Omako, Komo, Ogubolo LGA. Discussing this topic with me is Mr. Taribo. Topic is flood, causes, effect, and prevention. So, Mr. Taribo, you are welcome to this program. So, what can you tell us about this flood cases, effect and causes, effect and prevention.
I'm Tarabo, the senior civil servant of Ministry of Education, River State. Yes, we want to discuss flood causes, effects, and prevention. What is flood? Flood is an outrageous outflow of water from rainfall and other bodies, which cause devastating effect. What are the causes of flood? 1, blockage of waterways and blockage of drainages. Effects. The effects are 1, it leads to pollution of water and diseases and also death. And finally, the preventions. The preventions, 1, education. I wanted government, NGOs, state governments and local government to be able to educate the residents, the population, of how best they will be able to dispose their waste. Again, as it affects disease and pollution, this waterways, when these waste disposals have polluted the waterways, these are the same source that we drink water and all that. And when we drink this water, it will lead to diseases and also death. On a final note, I wanted the government to build facilities where the population will be able to adequately dispose their waste, more especially the building of incinerators. When these incinerators are built, incinerators will also help in increasing energy sources and all that. And this will help the government and the population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tarebo. Over to you, the presenter, Mrs. Ifoma. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that report there. That was a good one. Right now, we'll be opening our phone line. And you can call in if you're not able to drop your message for us on the comment section. You can call in. While you call in, please be civil. Just tell us your name, your location, and then go straight to the point of what you want to let us know. So let's take the number +234 9166 587355. I come again. +234 9166 587355. All right, let your call flow in. Thank you. So, sir, as we were discussing before on the floods, the early warning sign, the indicators, you talked about a mask in the olden days of where they will put a line. If the rain is able to pass, that people will start preparing. Does this still happen now?
I think
everybody is now civil, modernized.
Yes, people don't care anymore.
Wow.
Because everybody is looking for survival. If not, in those days, people don't rush, they want to go to the city. So you see everybody. And
it doesn't affect us the way it does now. Those days,
yes,
people are well prepared.
I think I can say precisely that until I was even 30, I don't think I have seen the kind of flood we experienced 2012. I don't think. Because, like we said, as the population is increasing, like what you also said here, whether you like it or not, human activities are becoming major impact. Because some of the drainages we are talking about, the way people build their houses, if you check well, all our drainages are very small drainages. They are not very wide. So anything you put there quickly goes to block it. If you go to if you go to Abuja today, you see some of their drainages are like tunnels. So such drainage, for anything to block it, unless you put a car inside for it to be blocked. So it's an issue. Like talking about indicators without probably scientific indication, maybe by individuals in the villages, they still have it. They still know where the flood can get. They say this year is going to be very low. This year, like my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, this year she called me and told me, that this year what she saw in the river, that the flooding will be high again, or where are we going to take her to? I said, well, let's be watching. So that tells you, because of course these are old women, about 80 something years, they know
what out of experience.
Out of experience.
So, sir, I will ask, in your own way or suggestion, what do you think that we can do? Even these people's nonchalant attitude of saying, I don't want to get back to the old way again. What do you think? How do we gain people's attention again on doing the right thing? Because it's like that one is working more. Everybody, all hands will be on deck. Let's do the right thing. How do you think we can control this flood?
I think as a preventive measure, let me assume that most of our people have refused to learn. If you check for the past 10 years now, this experience of perennial flooding has become a thing almost permanent. Now, I always say this. One of the major problems we have in this country is enlightenment. Most of us are in the capital cities. We don't go close to the villages. We don't know what is happening in those villages. For example, if a NOA fund is released to NEMA, they should to at least raise some fund for information technology. NOA is a major agency for enlightenment. If they give them funds, they can go from village to village. Thank God that every local government has a coordinator for NOA there. They can go, they know the villages, village to village, telling them the implications, telling them the activities that they can carry out that can make them have these problems. And of course, you know, in the villages, whether I like it or not, felling of trees, they don't care. It's indiscriminate. In fact, River State does not generate revenue from felling of trees. But that is a major problem. When all the trees are no more there, I hope you know that trees can also, in a way, form terraces against flooding.
Yes.
But all those ones, some of them are gone. And
Yeah.
nobody, no deliberate attempt to replant. So afforestation is dead. Well, how will I get my own? Let me sell plywood.
All right, this time we'll be going to read our messages online. Just like I said, that our viewers are one of the major participants in this program and the important guests. So we'll be reading some comments and messages to us. This is from Bridget Idemio. We can prevent flood by protecting our environment against the erection of illegal structures, especially on sewage. Also from Madam Bridget said there is need for proper town planning to ensure that projects are sited in the right places. Thank you, Mrs. Irene Akelili, for streaming live with us. Enoch Inkorobia, thank you so much for streaming live with us. Then from Rosemary Abihat, she said, poor town planning approach of the people and government can also cause flooding. Poor town planning approach of the people and government can cause flooding. Thank you, Bomamadi, for streaming live with us. This is from Leka Umejuru. Citizens of the state should stop throwing waste in drainages. Do regular cleaning of the environment and stop erecting structures on waterways to avoid flooding. This is from Mba Jude. Most of the causes of flooding is being attributed to man. The way and manner of waste disposal is one of the major factors contributing to flooding. This is from Kobani Benebari. Flooding is one of the challenges facing the country. What are measures put in place by the government to contain the periodic flooding? Then from Rosemary Abihat, erecting buildings along the drainage channels like roads, culverts, and watersheds can cause flooding. I would like to pause here. We'll come back to the comments so that we can deal with some of the points that we have gotten from people and then have our suggestions and contributions on it. But before we proceed, while we are looking at our participants online, what they have sent to us, one of our important guests, Septim, who is from Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center, YEAC, by name Mr. DUMNAMENE FYNEFACE. You are welcome, sir. Welcome to our program.
I appreciate being here.
Thank you. We appreciate you too.
I apologize for coming late.
We understand. That was based on the distance. Thank you. Thank you for still making it out with us. So, sir, to make you feel together with us, feel at home on what we are discussing. We are discussing on the flood, causes, effects, and prevention, and we have dealt with a lot of it. This is Dr. IYAMA. Yeah, he has done a lot of justice to some of them, with his experience, who has lived in a flood-prone areas. He has done a lot of justice to it, telling people what flooding is all about, how it affected us. Now we are on deliberation. What can we do? And suggestions have come from our correspondents at LGA. So we need your own contribution. So.
Yeah, it's important because flooding has been a very big issue that we have been having in Rivers State and its environs. And over time, I've been monitoring the flooding, the 2016 flooding, the 2012 flooding, 2018 flooding, monitoring all the flooding, especially in Aboda West local government area to Bayelsa.
Oh, you are coming from Aboda West?
I'm coming from Bayelsa State right now.
Okay.
But I've been going there to monitor flooding. I was also there a week ago at JK3 to sensitize them on similar issues, because I know quite well that very soon the flooding could be here again. And what can we going to do? So I think it's a collective responsibility. The federal government will have to play their roles. The state government will play their role. That is at the state level. We are even calling for the state governments to create a River State Emergency Management Agency, like we have, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, which will also have a state agency that will also help to manage this flooding. Then, at the local government level, they should try and work with the community people to provide a place where the people can run to whenever there is, flooding. I've been to Ahoda West, Akinima, and I saw the town where people normally stay, just like where IDPs do stay in some parts of the country. So they need to prepare properly on what can be done. The federal government can also dredge that Orashi River to take it down so that the flooding, when it comes, the river will be able to absorb more water and not let it flow into the communities. Then at the community level, the people should try as much as possible to keep their drainages clean, and then keep their environment clean in such a way that they don't block the channels of water. Like people that are planning communities, building houses, they shouldn't build on waterways. It's one of the things that contribute to this flooding oftentimes. And when the impact comes, it takes quite a while before we can overcome it. So all hands have to be on deck for us to address this issue.
So do you think, based on we calling on government to come, because governments having a lot of responsibility in their hands, from health to infrastructure and all things, because when we talk about change, when we talk about development, it has to begin with us. What am I doing? What's my neighbor doing? Do you think there is anything that people are doing to help themselves to say, okay, on our part, look at what we are contributing?
Well, people are trying.
Right now, you say you used to monitor that place.
Definitely. I even wrote a report on the 2012 flood, which I titled, I have never seen anything like this before. That was a statement from one of the women affected by flooding. And she was carrying a tuber of yam on her head and walking in the flood up to her chest level. And when we started saying, I said, I have not seen anything like this before. So the people will have to also look inwards. What is it that they are doing that is contributing to the flooding? And I think that we in the civil society as well, like the National Orientation Agency.
Sorry, sir. I want to. While I was discussing with Doctor, he mentioned one thing, that the kind of flooding we have these days, is much than the one we used to have previously.
Yes.
Can you still testify that?
Exactly, that is climate change.
Okay.
You know, when you have climate change coming in every day, you begin to have that issue. So part of the sensitization is to let the people avoid those things that contribute to climate change. That is why, as part of that process, we are also telling our youths who are involved in crude oil theft and artisanal refining, because that refining process, they are contributing to, you know, climate change. Because when they carry out those burning and they hit the atmosphere and things like that, reduction in dependence on hydrocarbon, fossil fuel, is another way we can also help this issue. That is why we at Advocacy Center, we are also pushing to see how we can do what we call just energy transition. How do we move from here? And just yesterday or thereabout, the Vice President launched the Nigerian Just Energy Transition Master Plan. So we need to interpret this to the people, and everybody will have to contribute to ways of making sure that we do not contribute to climate change that is causing flooding. So we need to do more sensitization for people to understand the role they have to play. And that is why we are, you know, we keep talking and talking to people at Advocacy Center is one part of what we do. So we continue to talk to the people. They need to contribute to these processes, avoid things that will lead to this. People should also try, they have little money, they can go into solar. If you are into solar, you will burn fuel less. And if you burn fuel less, it means you won't contribute to, you know, climate change that is causing the flooding. And when people drink water away from their plastic, they shouldn't dispose in such a way that it goes to block drainages. So we need to do everything we can within our own powers as a people. Before we can call on government to help, or we have to help ourselves by carrying out those environmental practices that will not contribute to flooding and climate change that will impact all of us, because we have just one earth. And if we do not protect the earth, then we are not protecting ourselves. Because he said that if you want to destroy a man, you just destroy the environment. And you have destroyed the man. Because the man is the environment, and the environment is the man.
Yeah, that's true. With this brings me to the point of asking this question about our environment, because it looks as if our environment is the main key to this flooding. Is it possible for replanning? For instance, people that might have built on waterways to say, okay, and let's replan without displacing people, and then we understand it's for their good and for the generation that is coming. Exactly. Is it possible?
I think it is possible, but you realize that it's capital intensive, because you know, it takes only a government that has guts to destroy houses that are already built on flood-prone zones, especially drainage basins. If you look at Port Harcourt, if you go to more about access, those who were in Port Harcourt in early 80s can testify that that area where Ombo Sokarari built that estate is a serious drainage basin. But that place has been blocked. So what do you expect water to do? Water will go to another area. And that's why you see the flooding occurring in some areas not there. So I think there is serious need for government to pick up the gauntlet and fight this once and for all. And it will be better for all of us.
Do you have a contribution to what
Yes, I have a contribution. We need to, if those people that build on those waterways, government will need to look into those areas and see how they can work with the owners of the properties to relocate the property, pay them some compensation so that they can be able to relocate the properties. And that is to say that those who are even approving building plans should also make sure that the area they are approving these plans are not on waterways.
Sometimes is it approved? You just see people they demand, building.
So government should
we still have our own character. Okay.
So the issue of money. Some people feel that as they have the money, they can build anywhere, they can dredge, they can fill and build. That is the problem.
It's true. Before we round up, I want us to take some comments, because we promise our viewers that they are part of us. So let's see what they are also saying. Say, national environment, soil erosion and flood control. This is from YEAC Command. Regulation 2011 should be invoked to finally put flooding to a halt. Possibly the war against indiscipline is ready to take up the task for enforceability and total compliance. Thank you so much, YEAC Command. They say they are out. You can also partner with them in your LGA. You know them.
Well, I've heard about them, but I've not really gone closer to them. I believe that with this program, I'll begin.
Please, this is a platform. I'm introducing you to them. Just partner with them, as you can hear from their command from Ghana that they are ready So partner with them in your own zone. Thank you so much. Then this from Obaro Johnson. I think the design and construction of the roads should also be done in a way that allows for free flow of water. Many roads in our state today are reservoirs. This is from Bekimbo Williams. Human activities be controlled effectively. Then this is from Seniba Abiye. Disposal of waste is key in the conversation of flood. So this one is eating on your phone. This one is coming to your own organization. You say disposal of waste is key in the conversation of flood. Please, what do you have to say on this?
We have been very strong advocates of poor waste management. There was some years back, the Waste Management Society of Nigeria was able to, design a roadmap of waste management in River State. But unfortunately, since under that government, that thing was just kept by the side. Because you discover that when people don't have a place to put their waste, they just keep it anywhere, they don't care. Well, like I used to tell people, government is saying, manage your waste properly, but they are not also making an advantage by at least making provisions of where this people can put their waste. Like in my last interview with 98.5, I told them that if government can deliberately build receptacles, at least every 1 to 2 kilometers in the capital city, build a small receptacle nearest to the people. Anybody and place what we call them waste guards. Anybody that doesn't come to that place to drop waste, you catch the person. This is business, and people will be encouraged to do that, because you discover that Port Harcourt today now generates over 4 million kg of waste. It's terrible. So you can't imagine where these things will go to. They can go to anywhere. And Waste Management Society has said, whether I would like it or not, sorry to use that language, we have said people have to pay for their waste they have generated. We are coming to that level. Because the population is getting so much now that a time will come, the state government may not be able to manage waste in this town. For example, I told people last 3-4 years by the government of Rotimi Amechi, when Lagos State was making 500 million naira per month from waste management, River State was spending over 500 million. You can see the difference. So we need to actually look at it that way.
Okay. Sorry, please, we'll be coming to round up this program for today, but before we leave, I would like us to, each of us, look into the camera, what you have to tell the government and the people, just to build the synergy. People look at what we ought to do, and then look at where governments can come in, what they can do for us. Just looking into the camera and tell them what they ought to do.
Yeah, we are talking about waste, and we are talking about flooding, and it's very important that we manage our waste properly. Nothing is fundamentally wrong with people paying a token to enable government to manage their waste. But what I think we can do at this point in time, that government is still managing the waste for us without having to ask us to pay money, is to back our waste, drop it where we ought to drop it, and then do not allow our waste to block drainages. We must try as much as possible as a people to synergize with governments, the National Orientation Agency, by sharing information that you have heard today. It's not every citizen of River State or Nigeria that have heard us today, but wherever you are, you have heard it. Go to your communities and sensitize the people so that the message on how to manage flooding and how to manage the effect of flooding for it not to affect us can be properly shared. It's important. We at Advocacy Center will continue to push, because we know that the action we take is important to enable us not to have flooding affect us as a people. So climate change practices will also be very, very important for us to put in place. And by next week, Advocacy Center will be organizing 2 meetings in some parts of Ogoni to tell the people about climate change and the role it is playing in even flooding and other impacts of climate change. We urge you to join us online and offline. It's important that we are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, Doctor, please look into the camera and talk
to my people. I think I want to, first of all, look at it from the government sector. Government has to be more proactive this time. Let the agencies of government been given enough funds to go into what we call education or enlightenment, because some of these enlightenments are only done around the cities. The villages where these impacts are mostly felt, most of them don't even know what I'm talking about. So I believe that if government can do that, more proactive actions may be taken to prevent this. Then to the people, we are used to I don't care attitude. All the factors that fight us today are from us. The issue of climate change you are talking about, if you look at last year, this year, if you check the World Earth Day, the World Environment Day, all of them are talking about what? Protect the earth. We have just one earth, and whatever we are doing, let us not feel it is just government. In fact, the funniest thing is that most of the people you think about the government can leave you and go to elsewhere, but you cannot live where you are. So you must take it personal to protect the environment. You can't see somebody who is doing the wrong thing and say, I'll keep quiet. Like I used to do. Sometimes when I see people drive on the street, they throw waste out from their vehicles. I quickly drive and stop. That's what I do. I do it not because of it. Whatever will happen, let it happen. That is how you can control these things. Because our drainages are getting blocked, especially in the capital cities, and there is nothing you can do about it. Water must find its course, and you can't block water. So I want to say that all of us must, as a matter of urgency, both the petroleum industry, we all know what to release into the atmosphere. Our people too who are into bunkering, illegal bunkering, sorry. Please, we are begging you. You are releasing so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is one of the most salient killer in the climate change issues. So please avoid it so that all of us will live to also enjoy the earth. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, viewers, for today's NOA dialogue. This is an impactful one today, I must say. So it's now left for us, as we have heard from our guests today, to put all we have heard in practice. And I believe if we are able to do our part, in no time, in no distance time, our government can also set into to know what they can do for us. We can't just fold our hands and our lives and properties will be at risk. But before we go, I would love to say thank you once again to our guests today. Thank you, Doctor, for making it out today with us again. And then, Mr. FYNEFACE, I'm glad you make it. Thank you so much. We are glad. We also want to thank the executive producer of this program, the National Orientation Agency Director General, Dr. Gaba Abale, for giving us this platform to sensitize the public. We also want to thank again the State Director of NOA River State, Barrister Young Ayotamona, for his efforts week by week to see the continuation of this sensitization. Thank you so much, sir, for doing this great job. And also to the studio director who makes the program seamless, moving on seamless, Mr. Briggs Arurieti. Thank you, sir, for your words. We appreciate you, sir. We also want to thank you, viewers. You're a big part of this program for your participation. Thank you so much. And we encourage you to disseminate this program. Share this information. Click on the share button on the screen. Try as much as possible to share to your contacts. They say information is power. When you are informed, you will not be deformed. Yeah. That's all we have to tell you today. And remember, you can share this by clicking on the share button on the Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. You can go there, share it through the links. Let's do the right thing and transform Nigeria. See you next week, same day, same time. Stay safe and remain blessed.